Hi there, Skid Evenstadi, CEO of OneWire. Welcome to Open Door. Today we're going to go interview my very good friend Steve Ketchum, who is the CEO and founder of Soundpoint Capital, an event-driven credit fund. It's a very interesting space. You're going to learn a lot. Let's go see what he's up to. I'm here today with my good friend Steve Ketchum, the president and CEO of Soundpoint Capital. Ketch, you started your firm a couple of years ago. Could you give us a little background and history and how you got going?
You bet. I partnered with a large private equity firm called Stonepoint Capital, and together we founded Soundpoint Capital. We obviously like the word point. And what we do is we manage investor money, pension funds, endowments, large fund of funds, and we focus on credit. And by credit, I mean high yield bonds and loans. And so that's where we focus. And so we focus on creating very low volatility returns from 10 to 15%.
Take us back to when you were in college and you were thinking about what your first move would be. How did you decide to go to Wall Street?
When I think back, as is the case with most people, especially then, I had no clue about what I wanted to do. And so part of what I did when I was in college was create a network. And today, we didn't have the same benefits as one does today in terms of being able to create a network on with a company like OneWire, for example, just hypothetically. The sort of networks that you and I created when we were in college were friends of our dads or fathers of our friends, and talking to them about what they did and trying to understand and learn about the business. It was a much less efficient way to do it. But at the end of the day, the way I thought about, and I didn't think about it in a particularly scientific way, but as I look back, finding a great job and getting on the right career path is part art, part science. The science part of it is creating the network, making it a numbers game, speaking to as many people as you can, and getting as many opportunities to talk about yourself and get in front of people. And the art is trying to figure out how to market yourself. My first job was working at Dean Witter. So I worked with a group of people there that manage money for family offices, big family offices, and small institutions. And so that was a great backdrop for what I'm doing now.
And so you went to Harvard Business School, then you came out and where'd you go, DLJ? Or?
DLJ.
Okay. And how was that experience?
That was a great experience. I think one of the best things that anybody can do, whether they're undergrad or business school, is to take advantage of the summers. So I had always worked during the summers, and undergrad was no different than high school, and business school was no different than undergrad. So I did a summer associate program at DLJ. I had no idea what investment banking was all about, and I learned. It was 2.5 months of very hard work. I learned about the business and developed some relationships at DLJ. I was fortunate enough to be given a job offer, and so I came back and ended up working at DLJ for 10 years, which today, having a job for 10 years is somewhat unique.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Got you. And then after DLJ, you actually stepped out of working in the finance area and you went to the corporate side. You actually started with a startup, didn't you?
When you do something for 10 years and you get relatively, you build your skill set and the learning curve flattens a little bit, sometimes it's a good thing to get out of your comfort zone. So in 2000, I had invested in a company called OnView. This was during the internet boom. And OnView sort of married a couple of things that interested me. One was art, and one was new media or the internet. And so working at OnView, and I was there for about a year, was very, very interesting in terms of steepening my learning curve.
And then after that, you went back into the banking area?
Went back into the banking area. So a group of partners of mine at DLJ had moved on to UBS. So I worked there for 2 years, had a very, very good experience, and then was recruited to Bank of America to run Bank of America's media telecommunications group.
And then after B of A, you started up this company. But in terms of obstacles that you've come across in your life, I mean, are there any that you remember that you're just like, where you were like, God, this is tough, can I do it? Can I overcome this obstacle?
If you recall, I started out in the investment management business, but then had moved to another side of the business. So when I sat down with my business plan with my future partners at Stone Point, they said, look, you seem like a smart guy, you understand loans and bonds and the sort of assets that you intend to invest, but you don't have a track record. And so prove to us that you won't lose our money and that you'll do a good job building a team and raising assets. Right. And so I had to formulate a story about why I could do that better than another individual that, they, at that point they had been talking to about 20 or 25 other teams or individuals. So I had to convince some very talented, very smart, very successful people that I would do a better job building a team and managing their assets. So I talked about my skill sets, I talked about sort of my personal investment philosophy, and ultimately we found that we were aligned, but I convinced them to take a leap of faith. There wasn't an abundance of data that would suggest that I was the best person for the role, but there was an intangible, and somehow we made a connection, and they decided that they trusted me. So there's a factor, an X factor, which by and large, at least in my mind, is the element of trust. And whether you're partnering with somebody in a business venture, whether you're looking for investors, or whether you're just taking a job, convincing somebody that they can trust you, I think is hugely important.
What else do you look for in candidates? If you were to hire somebody today, what are you really looking for as somebody who's going to join your firm?
One of the challenges, or one of the setbacks or potential drawbacks in having a highly structured upbringing is that I'm concerned that my kids may not learn to fend for themselves or to think for themselves.
Sure.
So I look for evidence that a candidate is able to fend for themselves, think for themselves, have an assignment and go off and figure it out, as opposed to needing feedback or oversight every minute of the day. And frankly, I do think, having been in the business of hiring people for the last 15 years, I do see that skill set, the ability to be a self-starter, for lack of a better term, I see that on the wane. So that's, in terms of being able to set yourself apart, it's high IQ and great grades and extracurricular activities, all good. Yeah. But it's such a competitive environment that today, being able to show somebody, a potential employer, that you're a self-starter, hugely important.
Great. Well, listen, Steve, this has been hugely helpful. Steve Ketchum, President and CEO of Sound Point Capital, thanks for having me in.
Pleasure.